Ladies and gentlemen, one day you will wake up and realize that the person you could have been is not the person you chose to become. And that realization doesn't come with noise. It comes in silence, in the quiet moments when you're alone, when distractions fade, and truth speaks louder than comfort ever did. Motivation feels powerful when it shows up. It gives you energy, clarity, and a sense that anything is possible. In those moments, you feel unstoppable. You make plans, set goals, and promise yourself that this time will be different. But the problem with motivation is not how it begins, it's how quickly it fades. What once felt like fire slowly turns into hesitation, distraction, and eventually inaction. And that is why relying on motivation alone is one of the biggest mistakes anyone can make on the path to growth. Motivation is emotional. It depends on how you feel in a given moment, and feelings are constantly changing. Some days you wake up inspired, ready to take on the world. Other days you feel tired, overwhelmed, or simply uninterested. If your actions depend on how you feel, then your progress will always be inconsistent. You'll move forward when you feel good and fall back when you don't. Over time, this creates a cycle where you start strong but rarely finish anything meaningful. Think about how often people say, "I'll start tomorrow," or "I just don't feel like it today." These statements are not about lack of ability. They are about dependence on motivation. When motivation is high, starting feels easy. But real growth doesn't come from easy starts. It comes from difficult continuations. The days when you don't feel like doing the work are the days that matter the most, because those are the moments where discipline is tested and character is built. The truth is, motivation is a spark, not a system. It can ignite action, but it cannot sustain it. If you want consistent progress, you need something stronger and more reliable than emotion. You need structure, you need habits, you need the ability to act regardless of how you feel. Because the people who achieve lasting success are not the ones who are always motivated. They are the ones who have trained themselves to keep going even when motivation disappears. When you rely on motivation, you give your power away to something you cannot control. You become reactive instead of intentional. But when you rely on discipline, you take that power back. You decide that your actions are not dictated by mood, but by commitment. This shift is uncomfortable at first because it requires you to act without the emotional boost you're used to. It forces you to face resistance head-on without waiting for the perfect feeling to guide you. And that's where real transformation begins, because every time you take action without motivation, you are proving to yourself that you are in control. You are building trust with yourself. You are reinforcing the idea that you don't need to feel ready to move forward. Over time, this creates a new identity. Someone who shows up no matter what. Someone who follows through. Someone who doesn't break promises to themselves. Ironically, action often creates motivation, not the other way around. When you start doing the work, even when you don't feel like it, momentum begins to build. Small wins create confidence, and confidence fuels further action. What once felt difficult starts to feel manageable, and what felt impossible starts to feel within reach. But none of this happens if you wait for motivation to lead the way. So the real question is not how to stay motivated, but how to keep going without it, because motivation will leave you. It always does. And when it does, the only thing that will remain is your willingness to continue anyway. Acting despite your feelings is one of the most difficult yet transformative skills a person can develop. Most people are conditioned to believe that action should follow emotion, that you should work when you feel motivated, rest when you feel tired, and start when you feel ready. But the truth is, if you wait for your feelings to align perfectly with your goals, you will spend most of your life waiting instead of progressing. Feelings are temporary. They shift based on your environment, your energy levels, your past experiences, and even the smallest inconveniences. One moment you can feel inspired, and the next completely drained. If your actions are tied to something so unstable, your consistency will always be broken. You may begin with excitement, but that excitement fades, and when it does, most people stop. Not because they are incapable, but because they have trained themselves to only move when it feels good. Growth doesn't care about how you feel. Progress is not emotional, it is behavioral. It is built on what you do repeatedly, not what you intend to do when the mood is right. The gap between where you are and where you want to be is filled with actions you often won't feel like taking. Waking up early when your body craves sleep, staying focused when distractions call your name, continuing the work when your mind says you've done enough. These are the moments that define your future. When you learn to act despite your feelings, you take control of your life in a way most people never do. You stop negotiating with your excuses. You stop giving your emotions the authority to decide your direction. Instead, you begin to operate from a place of intention. You decide what needs to be done, and you do it, regardless of whether it feels convenient or comfortable. This doesn't mean ignoring your emotions completely. It means understanding their place. Feelings can inform you, but they should not control you. There will be days when you feel low, unmotivated, or uncertain, and that is part of being human. But those feelings do not have to dictate your actions. You can feel tired and still show up. You can feel doubt and still take a step forward. You can feel fear and still move in the direction of your goals. The power of this mindset is that it builds resilience. Every time you act without waiting for the perfect feeling, you strengthen your ability to handle discomfort. You become less sensitive to resistance and more focused on results. Over time, what once felt hard begins to feel normal. The actions that required effort become habits, and those habits begin to shape your identity. There is also a deeper level of self-respect that comes from this. When you follow through on what you said you would do, even when you didn't feel like it, you start to trust yourself. You no longer see yourself as someone who makes empty promises. You become someone who executes, someone who shows up, someone who can rely on their own discipline. That trust is powerful because it affects every area of your life. Most people are controlled by their feelings, which is why most people remain stuck. They wait for motivation, for confidence, for the right moment. But those who succeed understand that action must come first. They move before they feel ready, and in doing so, they create the very feelings they were waiting for. At the end of the day, your feelings will always try to pull you toward comfort, but your goals require you to step into discomfort. And the moment you choose to act anyway, you begin to separate yourself from the version of you that stays stuck and move closer to the version of you that grows consistently. Your mind is designed to protect you, not to push you toward greatness. It constantly scans for comfort, safety, and familiarity, because from a survival perspective, those things mean you are not in danger. The problem is that what keeps you safe does not always help you grow. In fact, most of the time, it does the opposite. It keeps you stuck in routines that feel easy, predictable, and comfortable, even when those routines are slowly holding you back from becoming who you are capable of being. Comfort feels good in the moment. It asks nothing from you. It allows you to avoid effort, risk, and failure. Your mind naturally leans toward it because it requires less energy and creates less stress. But growth lives in the opposite direction. Growth demands effort. It demands uncertainty. It asks you to step into situations where you might fail, where you might struggle, and where you might feel exposed. And because your mind is wired to avoid those feelings, it will resist every step you try to take in that direction. This resistance often shows up in subtle ways. It doesn't always say, don't do it. Instead, it sounds like you can start later, you're not ready yet, or this is too much right now. These thoughts feel reasonable, even logical, but they are often just your mind trying to pull you back into comfort. Over time, if you listen to them repeatedly, they become patterns. You delay, you avoid, you settle, and without realizing it, you build a life around what feels easy instead of what is meaningful. The danger of comfort is not that it feels bad, but that it feels right. It convinces you that staying where you are is acceptable, even when deep down you know you are capable of more. It keeps you in a space where there is no pressure to improve, no urgency to act, and no challenge to overcome. And while that might bring temporary peace, it also creates long-term dissatisfaction. Because somewhere inside you, there is always a voice reminding you that you are not living up to your potential. To grow, you have to consciously go against this natural tendency. You have to recognize that your mind's first response is not always in your best interest. Just because something feels uncomfortable does not mean it is wrong. In many cases, discomfort is a sign that you are moving in the right direction. It means you are stepping outside of what is familiar and expanding your limits. When you begin to challenge your comfort zone, it will feel unnatural at first. Your mind will push back harder. You will feel resistance more strongly. But this is part of the process. Every time you choose to act despite that resistance, you are training your mind to accept a new standard. You are showing yourself that you can handle more than you thought, that discomfort is not something to fear, but something to work through. Over time, your definition of comfort begins to change. What once felt difficult becomes manageable. What once felt impossible becomes achievable. This shift doesn't happen overnight, but it happens through repeated exposure to challenges. Each time you push yourself, you expand your capacity. Each time you resist the urge to stay comfortable, you build strength. The key is awareness. You have to be able to catch yourself in those moments when your mind is trying to pull you back. You have to question whether what you are choosing is truly helping you grow or simply helping you stay comfortable. Because if you always choose comfort, you will always stay where you are. Your mind will always try to protect you from discomfort, but it is your responsibility to decide whether that protection is limiting your potential. And the moment you start choosing growth over comfort, even in small ways, you begin to break free from the patterns that have been holding you back and step into a version of yourself that is stronger, more capable, and more aligned with the life you truly want. Small daily actions often feel insignificant in the moment. They don't come with applause, recognition, or immediate results. In fact, most of the time, they feel almost invisible, like they don't matter enough to truly change anything. But this is one of the greatest illusions that holds people back. Because real transformation is not built on sudden, dramatic changes. It is built on consistent, repeated behaviors that slowly shape who you become over time. People are naturally drawn to big breakthroughs. They want instant results, quick progress, and visible success. They believe that one powerful decision or one perfect moment will completely change their life. But the truth is, those moments are rare and often unsustainable. What truly defines your future is what you do every single day, even when it feels small, even when it feels like it's not making a difference. Every action you take is like a vote for the kind of person you are becoming. When you choose to wake up early, even when it's difficult, you are reinforcing discipline. When you choose to focus on your work instead of getting distracted, you are strengthening your ability to concentrate. When you choose to take care of your body or learn something new, you are investing in your long-term growth. These actions may not create immediate change, but they are quietly building a foundation that becomes impossible to ignore over time. The power of small actions lies in their consistency. One day of effort may not show results, but repeated over weeks, months, and years, those efforts compound into something powerful. Just like a small drop of water can eventually carve through stone, your daily habits can reshape your life in ways you cannot initially see. The challenge is that this process requires patience, and patience is something many people struggle with. They give up too early because they don't see quick results, not realizing that they were closer to a breakthrough than they thought. There is also a psychological shift that happens when you commit to small daily actions. You stop overwhelming yourself with the pressure of massive change and instead focus on what is manageable. This makes it easier to stay consistent because the actions don't feel impossible. They feel achievable. And consistency is far more important than intensity. It is better to do a little every day than to do a lot once in a while and then stop completely. As you continue these small actions, they begin to form habits. And habits are powerful because they reduce the need for decision making. You no longer have to convince yourself to do the work. It becomes part of who you are. This is where real transformation happens. Not when you are forcing yourself every day, but when your actions start to align naturally with your identity. You become someone who shows up, someone who follows through, someone who is committed to growth. Another important aspect is that small actions build momentum. Each completed task, no matter how minor, creates a sense of progress. That progress builds confidence, and that confidence makes it easier to take on bigger challenges. It creates a cycle where action leads to belief, and belief leads to more action. Over time, what started as small steps turns into significant progress, and what once felt difficult becomes part of your normal routine. Many people underestimate the impact of these daily choices because they focus too much on the end result. They don't realize that the journey itself is shaping them in ways that go beyond the goal. It is not just about what you achieve, but who you become in the process. The discipline, the focus, the resilience, all of these are developed through consistent effort, not sudden change. If you truly want to transform your life, you have to shift your perspective. Stop looking for big moments and start valuing small ones. Stop waiting for perfect conditions and start working with what you have. Because in the end, it is not the occasional effort that defines you, but the daily actions you choose to repeat, even when no one is watching and nothing seems to be changing. One of the hardest truths to accept in life is that no one is coming to save you. It sounds uncomfortable, even harsh at first. Because deep down, many people hold on to the hope that something or someone will eventually step in and change everything. Maybe it's the right opportunity, the right mentor, the right moment, or even the right burst of motivation. But the reality is, waiting for that external push is one of the biggest reasons people stay stuck exactly where they are. It's easy to believe that your progress depends on outside circumstances. You might tell yourself that you'll start when things calm down, when you have more time, when you feel more confident, or when someone guides you in the right direction. But these are often just subtle forms of delay. They create the illusion that action will come later when everything is perfect. The problem is that perfect moment rarely arrives, and even if it does, it doesn't last. The idea that no one is coming to save you is not meant to discourage you. It is meant to empower you, because the moment you truly accept it, something shifts inside you. You stop waiting. You stop depending on external forces. You stop placing your future in the hands of things you cannot control. Instead, you begin to take full ownership of your life. Ownership changes everything. When you realize that your growth is entirely your responsibility, your mindset becomes more focused and intentional. You begin to understand that your actions, your habits, and your decisions are what shape your outcomes. Not luck, not timing, not other people, just you. And while that responsibility can feel heavy, it is also incredibly freeing, because it means you have the power to change your direction at any moment. Many people underestimate how much time they lose waiting for approval, waiting for clarity, waiting for confidence. But confidence doesn't come before action. It comes because of action. Clarity doesn't appear before you start. It develops as you move forward. Everything you think you need before beginning is actually built during the process, and the only way to access it is by starting without it. There is also a tendency to look for someone to blame when things don't go as planned. It could be circumstances, other people, or even bad luck. While these factors can influence your journey, they should not define it. The more you focus on what is outside your control, the less attention you give to what is within it. And that shift in focus keeps you powerless. But when you take responsibility, even for things that feel unfair, you regain control over your response and your next move. Taking ownership also means holding yourself accountable. It means doing what you said you would do, even when it's inconvenient. It means showing up for your goals, even when no one is watching or expecting anything from you. Because, at the end of the day, your life is not built in the moments when others are paying attention. It is built in the moments when you choose to act on your own. This mindset creates a different kind of strength. It removes excuses. It removes dependence. It replaces waiting with action. You begin to understand that you don't need permission to improve. You don't need validation to start. And you don't need perfect conditions to move forward. You already have everything you need to take the next step. The truth is, support from others can be helpful, guidance can be valuable, and opportunities can accelerate your progress. But none of these things matter if you are not willing to take responsibility for your own growth. They are additions, not foundations. The foundation must come from you, your effort, your discipline, your commitment. Once you stop waiting for someone to save you, you start becoming the person who takes action regardless of the situation. You become proactive instead of reactive. You start creating opportunities instead of hoping for them. And slowly, you build a life that reflects your choices, not your excuses. Regret is one of the heaviest emotions a person can carry, not because of what happened, but because of what didn't happen. It lives in the space between who you are and who you know you could have been. Unlike pain or struggle, which exist in the present and eventually pass. Regret has a way of staying with you. It revisits you in quiet moments, reminding you of opportunities you ignored, chances you didn't take, and actions you kept postponing until it was too late. Discipline, on the other hand, feels uncomfortable in the moment. It asks you to do things you don't feel like doing. It requires effort, consistency, and the willingness to push through resistance. Whether it's waking up early, staying focused on your goals, or choosing long-term growth over short-term pleasure, discipline often feels like a burden when you're in the middle of it. But what many people fail to realize is that this discomfort is temporary. It fades once the action is complete, and what replaces it is a sense of progress, control, and self-respect. The contrast between regret and discipline becomes clearer over time. Discipline demands a price up front. It asks you to endure discomfort now so you can benefit later. Regret does the opposite. It offers comfort in the present by allowing you to avoid effort, but it charges you later with a much heavier emotional cost. In the moment, skipping the work or choosing the easier path may feel harmless, even justified. But those small decisions accumulate, and eventually they create a gap between the life you have and the life you wanted. One of the most painful aspects of regret is that it cannot be changed. You can learn from it, but you cannot go back and rewrite the choices that led to it. This is what makes it so powerful. It forces you to confront the reality that time has passed, and certain opportunities are no longer available in the same way. You begin to think about what could have happened if you had just tried a little harder, stayed a little more consistent, or pushed through the discomfort you once avoided. Discipline protects you from that future pain. Every time you choose to act despite discomfort, you are reducing the chances of future regret. You are making decisions that your future self will thank you for. And while it may not feel rewarding immediately, it creates a sense of alignment between your actions and your goals. You start to feel that you are moving in the right direction, even if progress is slow. There is also a deeper psychological impact. When you consistently choose discipline, you build trust with yourself. You begin to see yourself as someone who follows through, someone who doesn't back down when things get hard. This self-trust is powerful because it influences how you approach every challenge in your life. You no longer question whether you can handle difficulty. You know you can because you've proven it to yourself repeatedly. On the other hand, when you repeatedly choose comfort over discipline, you weaken that trust. You start to doubt your ability to commit, to stay consistent, to achieve your goals. And that doubt can be just as limiting as regret itself. It creates a cycle where you avoid challenges because you don't believe you can overcome them. And that avoidance leads to even more regret over time. The choice between discipline and regret is not a one-time decision. It is something you face every day, often in small and seemingly insignificant moments. It's in the choice to start when you don't feel like it, to continue when it gets difficult, and to stay committed when progress feels slow. These moments may not seem important at the time, but they shape your future in ways you cannot immediately see. In the end, both discipline and regret require you to feel discomfort. The difference is when you choose to feel it. You can face the temporary discomfort of discipline today, or you can face the lasting pain of regret tomorrow. And while one challenges you in the present, the other stays with you far longer than you ever expected.